So يَحْسَبُ أَنَّ مَا لَهُ أَخْلَدَهُ. The other opinion in it is that this is a question from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to such a person. In other words, Allah is saying, أَيَحْسَبُ أَنَّ مَا لَهُ أَخْلَدَهُ. Does he assume that his wealth is going to give him a long life? So it's a question from Allah Azza wa Jal. That's in the second opinion. So أَيَحْسَبُ أَنَّ مَا لَهُ أَخْلَدَهُ. Does he assume that his wealth is going to give him this good life and this long life? Does he assume that his wealth is going to carry his name in positive mention among the people after his death? Because if that's what he thinks, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says straight after it, كَلَّا لَيُنْبَذَنَّ فِي الْحُطَمَةِ. كَلَّا, no, not at all. This is a response with a harsh and tough and heavy word from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah is responding to this corrupt, evil person with a threatening, tough word, and He's saying, كَلَّا, no, not at all. Your assumption is wrong. And everything that you do in life is all wrong, from your humazah and numazah, from your insulting and mocking of the people, to your collecting of the money and compiling it and stacking it for yourself and not giving any of those who deserve a right of this wealth. You're not giving them any of their rights, and then you're assuming that this money is going to give you a long life. All of this in one word, Allah responds to it by kalla. Allah Azza wa Jal doesn't even say la. كَلَّا لَيُنْبَذَنَّ. كَلَّا, this is one of the harshest words. And if you were to look into the Qur'an, you'll find that the word kalla is found in the Qur'an 33 times. And it does not appear in the first half of the Qur'an. The entire first half there is no kalla. It only begins to come in the second half. Specifically the first time it comes in the Qur'an is in Surat Maryam, which is past the half line, in where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, كَلَّا سَنَكْتُبُ مَا يَقُولُ وَنَمُدُّ لَهُ مِنَ الْعَذَابِ مَدًّا. And the word kalla, when you see it in the Qur'an, pretty much that surah is a Makki surah. The word kalla only came in Meccan surah, it did not come in Madani surah. Why? Because Meccan surah are surah that were revealed before the hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Obviously before the hijrah, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he lived in Mecca. And Mecca, you're dealing with tough, stubborn, arrogant mushrikeen and disbelievers that aayaat after aayaat would be recited unto them, and they're still mocking the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and they're still insulting and punishing and torturing the believers. So harsh and tough words are used against them, like waylun, like this word kalla. Kalla has a deep, tough, threatening, it implies that threatening tone inside of it. So this is how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds to such a person. And kalla, no, your wealth won't give you that eternity. What will give you eternity? What would give your name eternity after you die? Obviously it is the good deeds that one does. That will carry his name with a positive, good mention among the people long after he's gone and dead. The good deeds that you do to the people, your character and your manner, your iman, right? These are the manners that will keep your name in the books of history with a positive mention. Just like al-ulama rahimahumullah, up until now, we still mention them, we still share their works, we still research into their work. Why? Because they left that of a good trace in this life. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala akhlada dhikrahum. He made their mention eternal until the day of judgment, so that every time you mention one of them and you say rahimahullah, radiyallahu anhu, he's being rewarded. A river of hasanat is following him in his grave, and he is long dead, but his name has lived forever. This is what will make your name live on, not what this person assumed that his money would make him live an eternal life. Kalla, Allah Azza wa Jal says, لَيُنْبَذَنَّ فِي الْحُطَمَةِ. Now Allah Azza wa Jal begins to mention the punishment. Subhanallah, what is very interesting is that you find, subhanallah, 5 crimes at the beginning have been mentioned. Humazah, lumazah, jama'a malan, addada, yahsabu anna ma lahu akhlada. 5 crimes. And now in 6 ayat, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would describe exactly 5 punishments. For there is, the surah is symmetrical basically. 5 crimes with 5 punishments. Kalla لَيُنْبَذَنَّ فِي الْحُطَمَةِ. This lam that is found on the word لَيُنْبَذَنَّ, it's called in Arabic lam al-qasam. In other words, the lam of oath. In other words, Allah is saying, Wallahi, he will be thrown in al-hutama. يُنْبَذَنَّ, it comes from the word nabth. What does يُنْبَذَنَّ mean? It comes from the word nabth. Nabth, it is a verb that is used when something insignificant, when something worthless is thrown out. For example, they say in Arabic, نَبَذَ النَّوَى. You know, when you eat the date and then the seed, the pit comes out, and then you grab it and you throw it, yani there's no value to it, there's no significance to it, you don't even care where it lands and where it goes. That is the action. When you do that, that's called nabdh in Arabic. That's called nabdh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He spoke about Fir'aun and his army, and you know there were 2 million on the day they all drowned in the Red Sea, there were 2 million. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes that even though there were 2 million people drowned in one day, Allah Azza wa Jal describes the entire event. He says, فَأَخَذْنَاهُ وَجْنُودَهُ فَنَبَذْنَاهُمْ فِي الْيَمِّ. We seized him, we grabbed him and his army, and we threw them in the ocean, just like نَبَذْنَاهُمْ. We gave them no significance, no value, because obviously of their crimes and their rebellion against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He described Bani Israel and what they did with the book that He sent down to them, He said, نَبَذَ فَرِيقٌ مِّنَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْكِتَابِ كِتَابَ اللَّهِ وَرَاءَ ظُهُورِهِمْ. The word نَبَذَ, Allah Azza wa Jal, when He described what Bani Israel did to the book, this word is perfect and accurate description. He said they نَبَذَ الْكِتَابِ. They grabbed the book, Allah gave them a book, and they were supposed to hold on to its laws, and they were supposed to implement its laws in their life. But what did they do? They didn't just put it on the side. They threw it behind their backs, giving it no worth, no value, and no significance. This is what the word nabadha means. Now, why does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala use this word as opposed to other words that could have been used in this ayah? Allah Azza wa Jal could have said, كَلَّا لَيُلْقَى فِي جَهَنَّمْ, or لَيُلْقَى, كَلَّا لَيُرْمَى فِي الْحُطَمَةِ, كَلَّا لَيَصْلَى الْحُطَمَةِ. These words have been used before in the Qur'an. So what's the difference between them and the word yunbadhan that Allah Azza wa Jal chooses to use yunbadhan in the surah as opposed to anything else? This is why. And this is going to teach us the relationship between the crime and the punishment that Allah Azza wa Jal gives. You know, at the beginning of the surah, it was about the person who spent most of his time mocking, insulting, belittling the people. He was doing al-Hammaz, al-Lammaz. That's what he was doing. He humiliated and he shamed the people. He saw them inferior to him. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now on the Day of Judgment humiliates him and gives him no significance and gives him no value on the Day of Judgment, because that's how he dealt with the people. Subhanallah, his crime was what? What was his crime? His crime is that he did not give the people value. As a result, he began to mock and slander and backbite. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the way He throws him in the hellfire is in a way where there is no value and no worth and no significance given to him, subhanallah. And the essence in relationship and dealings between the human being is that you're supposed to respect and honor the human being. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. Indeed, we gave honor to Bani Adam. So since Allah Azza wa Jal gave Bani Adam honor, then you and I are supposed to uphold that honor that Allah Azza wa Jal gave us, and we're supposed to therefore honor and respect and esteem each other. Now when you go against that, that is exactly what the crime, that the punishment that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives such a person. He throws him in Jahannam like one throws a date from his mouth and just throws it out, in the open land, giving it no worth and no significance. كَلَّا لَيُنْبَذَنْ. Notice something else. Subhanallah, in terms of the insignificance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives this person. You know, what was this person's dream? Just an ayah before Allah Azza wa Jal told us his dream. And his dream was, يَحْسَبُ أَنَّ مَا لَهُ أَخْلَدَ. And he was living in a dream. His dream was, he wanted to live a long life. He wanted to live forever. A long life of sin and transgression. And he assumed his wealth would do that. However, he didn't live forever. What happened? He died. He was washed. He was buried. His dreams were shattered. He was resurrected. He was in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the hisab, in the judgment, and that's all over, and now he's at the gates of al-Hutmah, he's at Jahannam. So in other words, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions his dream in the ayah before. His desire, he wants to live forever. Then Allah Azza wa Jal fasts forward until his fate on the Day of Judgment, and now he's standing fil Hutmah, he's standing right before the gates of the hellfire. In other words, his life wasn't even worth mentioning. Subhanallah, one day he's living happy days. يَحْسَبُ أَنَّ مَا لَهُ أَخْلَدَ. He wants to live his dream. Bi-idhnillah, inshallah, I'm going to live that long, beautiful life with this wealth. And all of a sudden, the next day, which is literally the next ayah, لَيُنْبَذَنَّ فِي الْحُطَمَةِ. All of a sudden, how quick was that? He's al-Hutama. So Allah Azza wa Jal mentions his life and what he desired in this life. And then Allah Azza wa Jal didn't even speak about what happened after this. And straight now he's in from the gates of Jahannam. Yani how quick was that? And remember, the previous surah was about al-Asr. And one of the meanings of al-Asr was time being squeezed from your hand. And look at this person. Yani look, this was reality. This was the reality. How short was his life? One day he was with a dream. Literally the next day he's standing at the doors of Jahannam, about to be thrown, given no value and no significance. كَلَّا لَيُنْبَذَنَّ فِي الْحُطَمَةِ. The ulama, rahimahumullah, they say لَيُنْبَذَنَّ, meaning he and his wealth will be thrown in al-Hutama. Not just him, because there are other qira'at in which they said لَيُنْبَذَنَّ فِي الْحُطَمَةِ, that both of them will be thrown in Jahannam. What is both of them? Him and his malahu, and his wealth and everything that he collected in this life. In the hadith, the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, مَنْ آتَاهُ اللَّهُ مَالًا فَلَمْ يُؤَدِّ زَكَاتَهُ مُثِّلَ لَهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ شُجَاعًا أَقْرَعْ لَهُ زَبِيبَتَانِ يُطَوَّقُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ بِهِ. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says in the hadith, whosoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave wealth, and this person did not pay the zakat of his wealth, then on the day of judgment his wealth will become a poisonous male snake that has 2 black spots on its head over its eyes, and the snake will wrap around his neck like a collar, and it will begin to bite his cheeks, and it will say, Ana maluka, ana kanzuk, I'm your wealth, I'm your treasure. And then the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam recited qawlihi ta'ala in Surah Al-Imran, سَيُطَوَّقُونَ مَا بَخِلُوا بِهِ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ. سَيُطَوَّقُون, yani this ayah means that their wealth would become a snake, and it will wrap around their neck as a collar, and it will begin to bite on his face, and that is his punishment before he even enters Jahannam wal-'iyadhu billah. For him and his wealth, now in the form of a snake, يُنْبَذَنَّ, are thrown in Jahannam. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, لَيُنْبَذَنَّ فِي الْحُطَمَةِ, thrown in al-Hutama, thrown in the crusher. And subhanallah, the word al-Hutama, it rhymes, this punishment, it rhymes with his crime. His crime was Humazah, Lumazah, Addadah, and now his punishment is coming on the same rhythm, al-Hutama. Well, Hutama, it comes from the word hatam. Let's speak about the word hatam. Hatam literally means to crush something, to destroy, to pound something until it's gone, it's crushed. Al-Hutama therefore means the crusher. He will be thrown, given no value and significance. Where is he going to be thrown? In al-Hutama, in the crusher. And this word al-Hutama, interestingly enough, it comes in a hadith, a sahih hadith in Sahih Muslim, in where the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, إِنَّ شَرَّ الرِّعَاءِ الْحُطَمَةِ فَإِيَّاكَ أَن تَكُونَ مِنْهُ. The Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, إِنَّ شَرَّ الرِّعَاءِ, the worst among the people that are in position, yani like the judge, the teacher, the father, and so on, people that are in position, people that have a responsibility. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says the worst among them is al-Hutama. What does that mean? Meaning the cruel, the harsh, the oppressive person, the one who crushes the people with his words and his actions, right? The one who abuses those underneath him, the ones who hits them, he insults them, he swears at them, whether it's a father to his child, whether it's the boss with his workers, whether it's the master with his slave, the teacher with his student, whatever it is. For Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he referred to this person, how did he describe his crime? He called it al-Hutama, the one who literally crushes the people with his words and with his actions. Other uses of this word, for example, in the dictionary in the Arabs, they would say, هذا الإنسان حطمة في الأكل. What does that mean? That means, in other words, Bismillah, MashaAllah, when he eats, he doesn't leave anything in front of him. Someone like that, there's always that person on the table that, MashaAllah, nothing is left after he sits on the table. A person like this in Arabic is known as حطمة في الأكل. He destroyed everything in front of him, he completely crushed it, consumed it, left nothing for anyone. But that's how the word is used in context. Also, part of its use, for example, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he describes a crop in the Qur'an, and he says, فَيَجْعَلُهُ حُطَامًا. Hutama also refers to the crop. At the beginning it's fresh, it's green, it's solid, and then it turns yellow, and it becomes crusty, and when you touch it, all of a sudden it crushes. That action there is called al-Hutama. So now why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say that this person is going to be thrown in al-Hutmah, as opposed to saying لَيُنْبَذَنَّ فِي جَهَنَّمْ, لَيُنْبَذَنَّ فِي سَعِيرٍ. These words have been used for Jahannam before. So why this word? Notice, I'll answer the question, but I notice this. Notice that the punishment is going to be similar to the crime. You see, this person, what did he used to do? He used to destroy and he used to crush the people and their emotion with his words and with his actions. Remember that was al-Hutmah, al-Humazah, al-Lumazah? He would insult you, he would mock you, and as a result, what happens to the people? They become devastated, they become distraught. I can't believe, why did he mock me in front of everyone like that? And so the guy is left bad, feeling bad and sick for a week because he was insulted and mocked in front of people, and so he really crushed their emotions. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now throws him in the crusher, just like he crushed the emotions of the people with his words and actions. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala throws him in the crusher. And you know, subhanallah, when something is crushed, what do you do to it? You bring it down and then you apply force on it. And this is exactly what he used to do. He used to bring the people down. He used to belittle the people. He used to bring them down metaphorically by insulting them and mocking them. So now Allah Azza wa Jal, now Allah literally brings him down to the lowest pit of Jahannam, and he's crushed right then and there. Subhanallah, the ulama rahimahumullah, they say that Jahannam was called al-Hutmah because it crushes the bones until it reaches the heart. And how do we know that it reaches the heart? Because a few ayat later we're going to read التي تطلع على الأفئدة, that the fire reaches the heart, it reaches the heart. يعني subhanallah, it was called al-Hutmah because al-Hammaz, al-Lammaz, he used to backbite the people. In other words, he used to eat their flesh, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions this in Surah Al-Hujurat. And so now he's in al-Hutmah, and al-Hutmah is going to eat away his skin and his flesh until it reaches his heart. يعني subhanallah. Well, subhanallah, the other amazing thing here is that, you know, we're never going to have a real imagination of what al-Hutmah is. We're never going to have a real imagination. That's why the next ayah would be وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْحُطَمَةِ. But before that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give us an example of the closest reality to al-Hutmah in this life. And this will happen in the next surah, which is Surat Al-Fil. What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala do to Ashab Al-Fil? You know, we mentioned the story of Ashab Al-Fil, but the last ayah in Surat Al-Fil was what? فَجَعَلَهُمْ كَعَصْفٍ مَأْكُولٍ. You know, al-asf al-ma'kul is the hay, the straws, the hay straw that the cattle will eat. And then, you know, whatever bits and pieces that come out from its mouth and fall, that's called al-asf al-ma'kul. These giants that Allah Azza wa Jal referred to at the beginning, Ashab al-Fil, huge people. Abraha and his army, they came to destroy the Kaaba. At the end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made them like chewable hay, chewable skewer. That's exactly what they became at the end. For that surah then, the next surah, Surah Al-Fil, is going to give us the closest example of people in this life that were punished as a means of the crusher of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if that was its result in this life, you can just imagine what kind of force would this crusher have on the Day of Judgment against those who rebelled and committed these sayyat. كَلَّا لَيُنْبَذَنَّ فِي الْحُطَمَةِ. Now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْحُطَمَةِ. What will give you any idea what al-Hutmah is? Well, subhanallah, how this ayah is perfectly placed in this surah. And I want you to understand the placement of this ayah. You know, it's as though someone said, how can one punishment, which is al-Hutmah, be enough for two crimes this person committed? Or didn't this person commit the two crimes, Humazah, Lumazah? And so Allah Azza wa Jal says, al-Hutmah, that's just one punishment. So one might say, how can this one punishment of al-Hutmah be enough for two crimes, Humazah and Lumazah? We were expecting two punishments. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْحُطَمَةِ. You don't know what this one punishment is. What is it all about? And this is why this ayah is straight after كَلَّا لَيُنْبَذَنَّ فِي الْحُطَمَةِ. It's like Allah Azza wa Jal is saying, what will give you an idea what al-Hutmah is all about? You know how serious and real al-Hutmah is? And so now the one who was saying, how come one punishment for two crimes sit down? Allah Azza wa Jal is saying to you, you know how severe this Hutmah is. If you just knew what it is, whatever crime you committed, it'll still be more than what kind of crime one committed. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْحُطَمَةِ. And whenever you see this word in the Quran, وَمَا أَدْرَاك, it implies emphasis. Allah Azza wa Jal is magnifying on the hutama, is giving it emphasis. What is about to be mentioned is something beyond our imagination. Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, he says something very interesting. He says that there is nothing in this life that compares to the hereafter other than the names of things. That's all. You know an apple here? The same, there is an apple as well in the hereafter, but the only similarity between an apple in this life and in the hereafter is just the name. The texture, the size, the color, the taste, and all that is different. And so same as Jahannam. When we say the crusher, we can sort of have a small idea of what the crusher is. But the only thing that remains similar in this life to the hereafter is the names of things. We know what kind of force and what kind of result it'll do in this life, but this is nowhere near compared to what will happen in the crusher of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has prepared for such criminals. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْحُطَمَةِ. Do you really know what al-Hutmah is? In other words, Allah Azza wa Jalla is saying, look around for clues. You'll never be able to understand and comprehend how serious al-Hutmah is. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, from now until the end of the surah, is all clues about al-Hutmah. The rest of the surah now is an explanation of this one powerful word al-Hutmah and its serious nature. That's why the surah is called Surat Al-Humazah. From now on, it's just an explanation of the word al-Hutmah. And subhanAllah, what adds to the seriousness is that this surah, Surat Al-Humazah, is the last surah in the Quran that will mention and describe the hellfire and describe the hereafter. And Allah Azza wa Jalla will do that in 6 ayat. So you can imagine how intense this is, because this is the final warning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now when your father gives you a final warning on something, or when your teacher gives you a final warning on something, how serious is it? And how afraid and how terrified are you if you were to come out of line? For this is going to act like the final warning about Jahannam. And the scholars, rahimahumullah, they say that there is no severer description given to the fire in the Quran than the description that is given in the surah. So he says, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْحُطَمَةِ. He begins, نَارُ اللَّهِ الْمُوقَدَةِ. نَارُ اللَّهِ الْمُوقَدَةِ. The lit, the kindled fire of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Usually in the Quran, the fire, it's ascribed to other than Allah. Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says, نَارُ جَهَنَّمْ, many times in the Quran. النَّارَ الْكُبْرَى, for example, in Surah Al-A'la. In the surah, to add intensity to the fire, Allah Azza wa Jalla ascribes it to Himself. He says, نَارُ اللَّهِ الْمُوقَدَةِ. What does that mean, نَارُ اللَّهِ? In Surah Al-Shams, when Allah Azza wa Jalla mentioned the story of Thamud and Salih, He said somewhere there, نَاقَةَ اللَّهِ وَسُقْيَاهَا. Salih said to his people, this is the she-camel of Allah. Don't touch it, this is the she-camel of Allah. What does that mean? It means this is not any kind of camel. This is not a normal camel. This is the camel of Allah. In other words, it cannot be compared to any other camel. When Allah Azza wa Jalla now says, now Allah, He makes the matter huge and serious. In other words, He's saying, you cannot compare this fire to any other fire, because this fire has been created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself by His own hand. Now Allah, it gives us the seriousness. And then He adds to that, al-muqada. Al-muqada. Al-muqada means the kindle, the one that is lit, the fire of Allah that is lit. Why say the kindled, al-muqada? Obviously a fire is lit. Obviously a fire is kindled. Man, if I said to you there's a fire outside, why would I say there's a fire kindled or lit outside? You already understand if I say to you there's a fire outside, meaning it's raging, it's on fire, it's lit, it's kindled already. I don't have to add that word. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, نَارُ اللَّهِ الْمُوقَدَةِ. Why? Firstly, it adds intensity to the Jahannam itself, to the fire. And secondly, because there are some people that would assume that years and years have gone by on this fire, and that as of sudden, some people would think it has extinguished, or it has turned into ashes and it's become grey and it's no longer lit and kindled. So Allah Azza wa Jalla reassures. He says, no, this is still burning. from the day I created it until now it's still burning and it will remain burning forever. So he adds the word al-muqada. And in the hadith, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, أُوقِدَتِ النَّارُ أَلْفَ سَنَةٍ حَتَّى احْمَرَّتْ. That the fire was kindled for 1,000 years until it became red. And then it was kindled and lit for 1,000 years until it became white. And then it was kindled 1,000 years until it became black. And so he said at the end, فَهِيَ سَوَادٌ كَاللَّيْلِ الْمُظْلِمِ. He said it is black like the darkness of the night. Subhanallah. Well, and the word al-muqadah is a noun. And you know, we've always said that nouns imply permanence. So in other words, this is an endless fire. Yani, that will never ever extinguish. It keeps on burning and it keeps on burning. Unlike the fires in this life that you and I know of. Yani, as long as it turned on, how long is it going to last? Eventually it will turn off. If it was a bushfire and it was raging for a month or 2 months, eventually it's going to stop. Eventually it will be put off. But Jahannam, narullahi al-muqadah, permanent, it remains on, so that yani, do not think that it extinguished or the flame had turned off all of a sudden or it turns off later. It doesn't, it continues to burn. Narullahi al-muqadah. التي تطلع على الأفئدة. 3 ayat left to describe this حطمة. التي تطلع على الأفئدة. Allah Azza wa Jal says it is the fire that climbs upon the heart. The word تطلع, it is a word used to describe the sun rising. يعني you say طلوع الشمس. And you know when the sun rises, it rises progressively and slowly. And the word here, تطلع, is a present tense. In other words, it implies continuity. In other words, the flames of the fire will continuously rise upon the people in the hellfire. تطلع, slowly but surely and progressively, it keeps on eating on their flesh and on their skin until it reaches where? Until it reaches على الأفئدة. And not only that, it reaches the أفئدة and everything else. And more specifically here, Allah Azza wa Jalla, He says that it rises and the fire climbs until it reaches the heart, على الأفئدة. Now what does it mean that the fire rises and reaches the heart? You know, usually when someone is burning, the fire starts by burning the body, the outer limbs, the skin, the hand, the feet, whatever it is. However, this ayah is telling us that it reaches the heart. In other words, the ayah implies emphasis concerning the furiosity and the wildness of this fire. That it reached the heart. That means that it burnt everything on the outside. It burnt the skin, the meat, the bone, the nerves, and now it's reached the heart. When Allah Azza wa Jalla says, الَّتِي تَطَّلِعُ عَلَى الْأَفْئِدَةِ, implied within that, you should already understand that for it to reach the heart, it burnt everything else before. That's all implied in the word. Subhanallah. And why al-af'idah? Why the heart specifically, as opposed to the other limbs? Why didn't Allah Azza wa Jalla mention other limbs? 2 reasons. Wallahu a'lam. Ulama rahimahumullah, they mention number 1, to give us a feel of how intense the fire is. What does that mean? You know that Allah Azza wa Jalla has protected the most vital organs with the toughest of bones. Yani the heart is protected with some of the toughest bones in the body, and that is the rib cage. And the brain, which is the other vital organ, is protected by the skull, which is also another really tough bone. So if the fire has reached the heart, one could only imagine what has it done to the other limbs and organs that aren't protected as much as the heart is protected. That's one. The other thing is, so that the punishment fits the crime. Allah Azza wa Jalla specifically says that the fire reaches the heart so that the punishment fits the crime that this person did. You know this surah? It begins by mentioning the crime of what? Humazah, Lumazah, Jama'a Mala, gathered the wealth, Addada, Yahsabu anna malahu akhlada. And these crimes, they only happen because of arrogance and filthy evil intentions. And arrogance and filthy evil intentions, where are they situated? They're located in the heart. And Humazah and Lumazah, for example, the one who mocked and backbites the others. Why does he do that? Because he thinks he's above them. And that's called what? That's called arrogance. When Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says in the hadith, al-kibru batarul haqqi wa ghamtun nas. He says that arrogance is to reject the truth and ridicule, belittle the people. That is what arrogance is. For this person only did Humazah because of arrogance. And arrogance is in the heart. So now the heart has been mentioned as the fire reached to it. The other thing is Jama'a Malan. When the person gathered the wealth and he collected it and he compiled it. Why did he do that? We said it implies because he loved it. And love is where? Love is found in the heart. So التي تطلع على الأفئدة, because his crime was involved with the heart. And then the last thing was of his crimes, يحسب أن ما له أخلده. He assumed and he believed. And belief happens where? Belief happens in the heart. He assumed and believed that his wealth will give him a life of eternity. And so as a result, his punishment was that there was a focus on the heart and the fire would reach the heart. For subhanAllah, what happens is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would inform the fire of the corrupt heart, and as a result, the fire would reach their hearts and it will engulf it. The other thing, the last thing with the word al-af'idah, here the word when Allah Azza wa Jal says التي تطلع على الأفئدة, well, Allah, this word, it sends shockwaves in the ears of the listener. You know why? Because the body, to a certain degree, can handle the fire. If you put your hand in a flame, you can handle it. You're not going to die. You can handle it. But you know what cannot handle 1 second of the fire? The heart. It can't. But if the heart cannot handle 1 second of the flame, this is why it's deep inside and protected inside. All the other limbs, they can handle a few seconds of the fire, maybe 1 minute of the fire. That doesn't give you extreme pain, but you won't die. But the heart can't handle a second. For when Allah Azza wa Jal says, التي تطلع على الأفئدة, then you're supposed to think, Ya Allah, it reached the heart. What did it do to everything before that? التي تطلع على الأفئدة إنها عليهم مؤصدة. The fire is especially upon them sealed. عليهم. The word عليهم, it comes from the word ala. Ala means to be above something. In other words, this word alayhim, it implies that the fire has complete control over them. It has complete authority over them. The fire does with them whatever it wants to do. You're not in control now, the fire is in control of you. In this life, you are in control of the fire. You would kindle it and you would turn it off. You turn on the oven and you turn it off whenever you want. But now, in Jahannam, those who ended up in there, the fire has complete control and authority over them. Allah Azza wa Jal, He said, it is upon them, the fire is upon them, mu'sada. Mu'sada meaning the fire is sealed and it's closed upon them. What does that imply? If the fire is closed, then that means there is no escape. It gives the idea that they wanted to escape, but now there is no escape because there's locks and there's doors on the hellfire and it's closed. And the fire would burn intensely and severely when it's sealed and closed up. For example, now there's an oven. And how would you cook your food faster? Keep the door of the oven open or close it? Obviously, if you close it, if you close the lid, for example, when you're steaming rice, they say close the lid so that it cooks properly. Or if you're cooking something in the oven, close it. Whatever you cook, close it. Always seal it. Put it in a foil, close it. It cooks easier and it gets really hot and the temperature inside would increase dramatically. But now imagine this. Allah Azza wa Jal has already mentioned the intensity of Jahannam. And He now adds another intensity and says it's sealed. The inside of it, the steam has no escape. The steam of Jahannam has no escape. إِنَّهَا عَلَيْهِمْ مُؤْصَدَةٌ. SubhanAllah, the fact that the hellfire has doors is both a mercy from Allah upon the believers, and it is also a punishment from Allah upon the disbelievers. How is it a mercy of Allah upon the believers? Because the sinners from among the ummah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam would eventually come out of Jahannam from the doors. So when they know there's doors, they know that one day they will walk out of those doors after they have been cleansed from sayyi'at. And it is a punishment against the disbeliever, because each and every single time he sees the door of Jahannam, they think of freedom. They hope to escape and they come out one day. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He described them like this in the Quran. He says, كُلَّمَا أَرَادُوا أَن يَخْرُجُوا مِنْهَا أُعِيدُوا فِيهَا. Each and every single time they tried to come out, it implies that they get close, they get to the doors. What does Allah do? أُعِيدُوا فِيهَا. They're thrown back in. And what kind of mental, psychological torture is this for them? You see a door, and you know your hope is behind the door, and you just cannot reach it, and you cannot leave it. So this adds to their punishment, double punishment, subhanAllah. They say just like the prisoner. The prisoner in prison, Each time he sees the door, he thinks of freedom. When is the day going to come in where I'm behind this door? And not only that, if he hears the door knocking or some sort of sound on the door, Alhamdulillah, inshallah, there's some hope, someone's going to open the door. This is what the door does. The door is a punishment. The door is a punishment. So this is why, wallahu a'lam, that Allah Azza wa Jal gave Jahannam a door. And Jahannam basically is a prison. In where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Kalaa inna kitab al-fujjar lafi sijjin. He called it sijjin, comes from the word sijjin, which means prison. Now, I want you to notice the relationship between the crime and the punishment. This punishment, innaha alayhim muqsada. Well, this is a punishment, that the Jahannam is sealed. But what crime does it suit? In this ayah, the crime was, in the previous ayat, that this person gathered his money, right? And he began to count it. And not only normal counting, Allah did not say wa'addahu, wa'addadahu, double dal. That double dal implied emphasis, counting day and night. And it also implies that he made sure it's stored properly in the safe, and that no one has access to it. And he sealed, and he closed it, and locked, and double locked. And he made sure no one could get there, and he did not give any charity, not even zakat al-mal. So as a result, what happens? His punishment is that Allah seals him in Jahannam. He used to seal his money in this life, so Allah Azza wa Jalla now seals him in Jahannam, and He does not allow him to leave, just like He did not allow any of his wealth and treasures to leave that box or that safe he had. إِنَّهَا عَلَيْهِمْ مُقْصَدَةٌ. Last ayah in discussion, فِي عَمَدٍ مُمَدَّدَةٍ. In extended, in stretched out long pillars and columns. Now, the word amad, it comes from the plural, it is a plural of the word amud. Well, amud, obviously, the word amud, it refers to any pillar that is made from steel or iron, and it is used as foundations for a building. Pillars, foundations. That is what a amud is. Well, the word mumaddada, it comes from the word madda. Madda means what? To stretch something. But Allah Azza wa Jal, He did not say fi amadin muddat. He said fi amadin mumaddada. Double that. Just like addada, Allah Azza wa Jal, He says mumaddada here, meaning He's saying that these pillars are really, really stretched out to as far as they can stretch out. Now, what does this mean? Here, there are several interpretations as what it means for the pillars to be stretched out. Number one, so the doors of the hellfire are finally closed, and they are locked, fi amadin mumaddada, in long latches the size of pillars. Al-ulama rahimahumullah, they say innaha alayhim muqsada. Fi means bi'amadin mumaddada. In other words, it's locked with pillars the size of latches. You know how there's the gate latch? It's a piece of metal that is long, and then you raise it and you put it inside. Once you've locked the store, people do it until now. Once they've locked the store, they lift it and they put it in, and then they put a padlock on it. You see that line? That is considered fi amadin mumaddada. In other words, once they're in Jahannam and the doors are locked, the latches are also put in place and they're sealed in there forever. That's one of the interpretations. The other interpretation is that the people of al-Hutmah are literally in long pillars. Like the meat on a skewer and it be barbecued, they are literally on pillars, in long stretched out pillars, and that's how they're burning in Jahannam. That's a second interpretation. A third interpretation is that it can refer to the straight long flame in Jahannam that burns like a stretched long column and a pillar. Like the jet flame or a Bunsen burner. If you've seen the flame on it, it's very concentrated and it's straight, doesn't go left and right. That's what's meant by fi amadin mumaddada. That they're in Jahannam, and the fire underneath each and every single one of them is a straight pillar that is stretched out. It is concentrated on him, and it doesn't go left or right. That is one of the meanings of fi amadin mumaddada. A fourth meaning is that the disbelievers in the hellfire are placed inside columns that are hollow from the inside. Each and every single disbeliever is inside of a column. This is what it implies. Fi amadin mumaddada. And so what does that mean? What does it imply? It implies three things. Number one, tightness. The tight, confined, restricted space. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Furqan, He says, وَإِذَا أُلْقُوا مِنْهَا مَكَانًا ضَيِّقًا مُقَرَّنِينَ دَعَوْا هُنَالِكَ ثُبُورًا. He says, and when they're thrown in Jahannam, They will be thrown into a narrow, tight, confined place, and they're chained up. دعوا هنالك ثبورا. They will begin to scream out ثبورا, يعني destruction, destruction. Ya Allah, cause death upon us. For this becomes their wish, subhanallah. One of the meanings of amad mumaddada is that each and every single disbeliever is placed inside a long stretched column. And it implies tightness, it also implies intense heat. But then you're in the fire, and it's closed, that is already intense flame. And you're inside, something inside, how intense is this going to get right now? And then the third thing that it implies is loneliness. He doesn't have anyone to talk to. He can't sit anywhere, because if he tried to lean on the pillar, you can imagine how intense the pillar is going to be as a result of it being on fire and lit up, and subhanallah, how warm it is. Subhanallah. And the fifth interpretation of fi amadin mumaddada is that they are chained to long pillars. They are literally chained to long pillars. And so subhanallah, what that means, I'll just give you a worldly example of this, as al-ulama rahimahumullah they gave. They said that the people that are in prison, sometimes they're in prison, and the door of the prison is locked, and the door of his cell is locked, and the prisoner is in his cell, and is locked and is chained up to a pillar inside the cell. So locked upon locked, fi amadin mumaddada implies that kind of meaning, subhanallah. And at the end, only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exactly knows best what is actually meant by fi amadin mumaddada. But notice, subhanallah, the relationship between the crime and the punishment once again. His crime was يَحْسَبُ أَنَّ مَا لَهُ أَخْلَدَهُ. He assumed that his wealth will make him live forever. He hoped for a long life. Not to do good, but rather to continue in his evil of al-Humazah, al-Lumazah. So he wanted, what did he want? He wanted a long stretched out life to continue in his sin and rebellion and transgression and collection of wealth. So Allah Azza wa Jal punishes him with the exact same crime, and he places him in the fire in stretched out long pillars. Well, subhanallah, at the end, this person, he ends up getting his wish. Remember, he wanted akhlada, he wanted eternity. Allah gives him his wish. He gives him eternity, however not in this life. He gives him eternity in al-Hutmah, in the hellfire. My brothers and sisters in Islam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He didn't mention these ayat in the Qur'an so that we only recite them on our tongues and we get to know what the fire is all about. That's not the purpose. This is, obviously you do that. But the main purpose of the ayat is to warn each and every single one of us from these evil crimes, these horrible crimes, these sins, همز الناس ولمزهم وجمع الأموال وعددة وتضييع حقوق الناس, as mentioned in other words, Allah Azza wa Jal is warning us from backbiting the people, falling into the honor of the people and in their dignity, mocking them, even if it was for fun, as the ulama rahimahumullah mentioned, what the comedians do, and going to that and watching it and supporting it. All this is from al-Humazah, al-Lumazah. All of it is haram, not allowed, even if we're just mucking around with each other. And we sort of understand each other, and he can handle a heavy joke. Now he can't handle a heavy joke. And he's not the one that gives you the permission to joke or not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself has made this haram, because Allah Azza wa Jal knows exactly at the end how each and every single person is managed in their emotions and feelings. If it's not allowed, and insulting or swearing or cursing the people, stay away from all of this. And from among al-Humaz, wal-Lumaz that happens these days, and I really want to just mention something here, from among this backbiting and slandering and cursing that happens today is against the mujahideen fi sabilillah. And I want to explain to you something. Wherever they are, this is a problem today. Without getting into anything specific, be careful, my brothers and sisters. If you have no idea what's happening, then you don't have to say anything. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, Man samata naja, the one who remains silent is always going to be saved, and he's the successful one at the end of the day. And I'm not suggesting that all of them upon righteousness and upon goodness. There are some upon falsehood that are fighting for the wrong reasons. Al-Hadith, and Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he teaches us that on the day of judgment, the first three people that are thrown in Jahannam, the third of them is al-Mujahid, the apparent Mujahid fi sabilillah, that fought for the wrong intention, for the wrong reason, ego and arrogance, and as a result, Allah Azza wa Jal began with him in Jahannam. And at the same time, the Prophet ﷺ, he mentions and he teaches us that there are those who are sincere, fight in the path of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to clear this world from its corruption and injustice. And these kind of mujahideen we make dua for, we ask Allah Azza wa Jal to accept them. And Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says in the authentic hadith, listen to the hadith, this is why it's important to understand. He says, لا تزال طائفة من أمتي يقاتلون على الحق ظاهرين على من ناوأهم حتى يقاتل آخرهم المسيح الدجال. Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, there remains from my nation a group that continues to fight for the right cause. When you generalize and you begin to do humazah wal lumazah in these people, into what you've generalized, you've put everyone, when Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is telling you that's wrong. There is always, from now until the day of judgment, there is always a group from my nation that is fighting for the right cause, and they will overcome their opponent until the last one of them would fight al-Masih al-Dajjal, the Antichrist. When you don't have no idea what's happening, then keep silent and don't fall into that, because this is part of al-Humazah, al-Lumazah that happens today. When Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, I end with a final hadith, he says, أَلَا أُخْبِرُكُمْ بِخِيَارِكُمْ. He says to the Sahaba, shall I not inform you of the best among you? They say, Bala ya Rasulullah, who's the best among us? For he says to them, الَّذِينَ إِذَا رُؤُوا ذُكِرَ اللَّهِ. He says, they are the ones who when you see them, they remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Hadith sahih, they're the best. Now then he says, أَفَلَا أُنَبِّئُكُمْ بِشِرَارِكُمْ. Shall I not inform you of the worst among you? For they said, Ya Rasulullah, inform us, who's the worst among us? For he says, المشاؤون بالنميمة المفسدون بين الأحبة الباغون البراء العنت. He says, the worst among you are those who go about slandering, cursing, backbiting each other, and those who cause mischief between friends that love one another in order to separate between them. The one that separates between two brothers that came and loved each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the final people in that category, he says, al-baghuna al-bura'a al-anat. He said, those who have a desire and they want to lead the innocent people into wrong action. In other words, they don't have a job. They look for the innocent ones, the pious ones, the ones that are fresh and young, and they begin to encourage them in sin. Ya Allah, come sell for me this and that, steal for me this and that, go and swear at this guy and this guy, go and take this news from one person to another, go and do a zina or haram, or go get me a loan on your name, and they are still young, doesn't matter, go get me a loan and give it to me, it's alright. Go and drink alcohol with drugs and all that. This, the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions as being the worst of the people. Al-baghuna al-bura'a al-anat. For my brothers and sisters in Islam, be careful from these qualities. And we end our discussion with one final thing, and that is the connection between the beginning of the surah and the end of the surah. And that is very simple. The beginning of the surah, it began with what word? Wail. Wail means what? The ultimate destruction. This is the curse from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon such a person. What is this wail? The end of the surah was a description of this entire wail. Al-Hutmah wa ma adraka mal-Hutmah narullahi al-muqada allati tattali'u ala al-af'ida innaha alayhim muqsada fi 'amadin mumaddada. All of that was basically a description, an explanation of what this wail, this curse from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this destruction from Allah, what does it entail? We stop here inshallah ta'ala. Next week we continue with Surat Al-Fil. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from among the people of the Qur'an, among the people of the Sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and we ask Him subhanahu wa ta'ala to rid us from these sayyat and these evil deeds and these evil crimes. إنه ولي ذلك والقادر عليه. وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.